In the 2020 NBA Draft, Tyrese Haliburton was selected 12th overall by the Sacramento Kings. At the time, many experts praised the Kings for getting a steal, but few expected Haliburton to become one of the league's premier point guards so quickly. Now, an All-NBA player, an all-star, one of the top passers in basketball, and this season bringing the Pacers to the finals and having some of the clutchest shots that we have ever seen in playoff history, it does make you question, who were the other 11 players drafted before Haliburton, and how have their careers stacked up in their first 5 seasons? Well, today we are going to take a look at all the players that were drafted before Tyrese Haliburton and see if those teams made a mistake in not drafting him. So, before we get into this, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that like button, and let's look at who the 11 players were that were drafted before Tyrese Haliburton in the 2020 draft. Now, with the number 1 overall pick in this draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves selected Anthony Edwards. Now, I would say that this was a pick that then and now the Minnesota Timberwolves would definitely keep if there was a redraft. Anthony Edwards has become a superstar. Many say he could be the face of the league after this old guard retires of guys like LeBron, Steph Curry, and KD. Many have high praises for him. He has brought his Timberwolves to back-to-back conference finals in the past 2 seasons, and he has been compared to legends like Michael Jordan, like Kobe Bryant. I mean, he is one of those guys that is a superstar in this league and could easily bring this team to a championship within the next few years and be an MVP type player. So I don't think the Timberwolves made the wrong decision there. With the number 2 overall pick, the Golden State Warriors would select James Wiseman. Now, at the time, this seemed like a very good pick. James Wiseman was a very talented guy. The Warriors were coming off of a season where Steph Curry didn't play, and this team was very bad, and they needed a big. But looking at it now, James Wiseman struggled to stay healthy. He never really fit into Golden State's system, and he was eventually traded to the Pistons, where they're still trying to find his footing. And Haliburton could have been a great fit next to Steph Curry. Now, at that time, maybe he wouldn't have played as much because the Warriors didn't need another guard, but I think if they could go back, the Warriors definitely would have taken Tyrese Haliburton over James Wiseman. Now, with the number 3 overall pick, the Charlotte Hornets would take LaMelo Ball. Like Edwards, like Haliburton, I would say that he is one of the elite guards in this class. Now, he has made an all-star team. He has shown flashes of brilliance when he's healthy. He has great passing. He has the confidence to score. And I think if you were the Hornets, you may look at this in a way where I wouldn't think that you would be too upset with this pick looking at it. LaMelo Ball has been fantastic when he's been healthy, especially the past season, the past 2 seasons. And despite Tyrese Haliburton playing very well now and within the past few years, I don't think this Hornets team would have changed very much if Tyrese Haliburton was on this team, because the team has just been so bad. Now, with the 4th pick, this is where it gets very interesting. The Chicago Bulls would take Patrick Williams. At the time, he showed a lot of potential out of Florida State. He was a two-way guy, but since then, he has struggled with injuries and inconsistently. He has, I wouldn't say he's been a bust, but he really hasn't lived up to those top 5 expectations. And when we're comparing it to what Tyrese Haliburton has done within the past few years, I would say that the Chicago Bulls, especially with the way that they have been playing the past few years, definitely would want to take Tyrese Haliburton over a guy like Patrick Williams. At number 5, the Cleveland Cavaliers would take Isaac Okoro. He's been known for his defense. Coming out of college, he got a big role on that team as a wing stopper, but his offensive game has been pretty limited, comparing that to a guy like Haliburton, who has a great offensive engine, being able to pass and score. I think the Cavs could have definitely used him next to a guy like Darius Garland at the time. Now, with the 6th overall pick, the Atlanta Hawks would take Onyeka Okongwu. He's had some pretty solid moments so far in his career, especially when he was coming off the bench, starting behind Clint Capella, but he really hasn't been the guy that they would have expected with the 6th overall pick. Yes, like I said, he's shown some talent so far, but I wouldn't say that the Hawks would say that they got a great return so far in Onyeka Okongwu, and I think they definitely, despite having a guy in Trae Young, would have probably liked to have a guy in Tyrese Haliburton next to him. But Okongwu did just have a great season this year, putting up the most points and rebounds he has, putting up 13.4 and 8.9 rebounds. So playing 28 minutes per game, maybe he's going to have another breakout season next year. So I wouldn't say that the Hawks would be too upset with their pick right now, but I still think they probably would have taken Tyrese Haliburton. Next up, we have the 7th overall pick. Now, the Detroit Pistons would choose Killian Hayes with this pick, and saying that name, I know a lot of people would probably say that this one is pretty easy to look at. Killian Hayes has not been a very good decision for the Pistons with that 7th overall pick, and I think they definitely would like to have Tyrese Haliburton on that team. Hayes struggled with scoring, shooting, decision-making, and he was let go from the team, and definitely would say that he was not worthy of taking that 7th overall pick for the Pistons, and I'm pretty sure they would be a lot happier having Tyrese Haliburton. With the 8th overall pick, the New York Knicks would take a former College Player of the Year in Obi Toppin from Dayton. And, he's been a fun, athletic player. And it's actually funny now, Obi Toppin playing on the Pacers with Tyrese Haliburton. He never really found a consistent role in New York. He had some moments. But when he was traded to Indiana, now playing alongside Haliburton, like I said, the Knicks missed out on an opportunity there. But he was one of the best players in college, and Obi Toppin, especially in this playoff and the past few years, he's had some big games where he has shown up, especially this year, like I was saying. So I think the Knicks would probably like to get that pick back as well. With the 9th overall pick, the Washington Wizards would take Deni Avdija. I was actually a big fan of him coming out of college. I thought he was going to be a very good player for this team. He has been known for his defense and his playmaking, but I wouldn't say that he's on Haliburton's level at that point, and I think the Wizards, especially the way that they've been looking the past few years, just not being great at all, I think they would probably like to get that pick back and probably would choose Tyrese Haliburton at that point. Next up, with the 10th overall pick, Phoenix would draft Jalen Smith, another guy that would actually end up playing with Tyrese Haliburton. When he was on the Suns with that 10th overall pick, he wouldn't do very much, and eventually he would get traded to the Pacers, like I said, to play with Tyrese Haliburton, and they would get Torrey Craig back. So it's not like they got very much out of that deal as well, but in that same season, he was traded to go over to Indiana. He would put up 13 points per game in the rest of that season. So since then, he has now been moved on to Chicago in this past year, and he hasn't really broke out as a top 10 pick in the NBA. And I think the Suns, especially with the way that they would kind of give him up for nothing after 1.5 seasons, I think they would like to go back and change that pick. Now finally, with the 11th overall pick, the San Antonio Spurs would select Devin Vassell. Now, this is another, I would say, respectable pick. He's been a quality two-way wing player so far. He's been in some trade talks recently, especially with the Spurs potentially trying to get Kevin Durant, but, he has been fantastic for them. His rookie season, 5.5 points per game, but after that, he has not had below 12.3 points per game, putting up almost 20 in 2 seasons ago, putting up 16.3 points last season. He's been a great young player for them, and depending on if they keep him or they trade him away, he has been a great asset for the San Antonio Spurs so far. So, looking back, obviously there's been some guys in this draft class who have been very, very good. Guys like Tyrese Haliburton, like we've talked about so far. Guys like Anthony Edwards. LaMelo Ball, when he's played, I think is a great player in this league as well. Some other guys, even farther down, Devin Vassell, with the 11th overall pick. There's teams above them that probably would have taken him. I mean, the Suns at the 10th pick, taking Jalen Smith. I think they would have rather had either Devin Vassell or Tyrese Haliburton. And some other guys, the Warriors with James Wiseman with the 2nd overall pick, maybe not going as well as they would have hoped. And, that's what happens. The NBA draft every single season, there are a lot of guys coming out of college or now coming out from overseas who look really good in college. Maybe they don't look as good, but then they perform a lot better in the NBA. These teams, there's a lot of different scenarios that can happen. So obviously, vision is always 2020 when we look back and talking about the 2020 draft. Obviously, we can talk about that. But these teams, looking back, obviously probably would have changed their decision in most of these instances, but there were some good, solid picks throughout this as well. So let me know down below, do you think any of these teams should have traded their pick if they could have at that time and got Tyrese Haliburton, or do you think that whoever your favorite team is took the right guy in that instance? So let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next one.